Welcome back, everyone. In today's video I'm going to be repotting my bald cypress, swamp cypress, whichever one you want to call it. So I picked up this tree from, it wasn't Long Acres, Perrywoods, the other kind of garden centre I go to. Funny enough, I actually thought it's a Dawn Redwood at the time. I didn't even read the tag. So yeah. Picked it up from Perrywoods early winter last year. And I kind of knew from, I did take it out of the pot before, and I kind of saw the roots on the bottom of the tree and thought I need to repot this ASAP. The soil listing isn't too bad, but I knew the root ball was going to be an absolute mess. Some good news, as you saw in the video, there's some mycorrhiza kind of growth. You can tell it's mycorrhiza and not a problem. So sometimes people look at cottony masses on the roots or around the roots and see it as an issue. It's an issue if it's actually on the roots, because that would be mealybugs, I think, or root aphids. And they tend to populate on the actual root because they're feeding on the root. Whereas mycorrhiza will be in between the roots, so in the soil in between the roots, which, you know, it's a beneficial bacteria for the tree. But anyway, this will be a bit jumpy. It took me a long time to just get most of the soil out of this root ball, and you'll see some of the issues that I have. There were some really thick roots coming out the bottom of the pot. I'm guessing these were field grown in the pots and they've kind of extended through. So you can see here at some point someone has reduced the roots a bit. Some of these bigger roots have been chopped and then they've regrown finer roots from there. But there are some issues. So I've got some really high roots on this tree, and I've got a massive taproot, which I'm sawing through now. Just a bit of ASMR there. So you can see there are some white root tips there. So I believe the roots did start, or they're still growing on this tree, which can always make a repot a bit more risky. The perfect time is when the tree's budding out and the roots aren't that active. But you can see by the absolute mess of this root ball that if I didn't get it repotted this year, for the rest of this year, it's just going to suffer and then might even die away. Who knows? Yeah, there is a big old ball of just really big old roots on the bottom there. Now, of course, I can't cut away all the roots. You know, I believe these propagate from cuttings, but I want to trust a cutting this big. But I've got to make some decisions on what I want to do with some of these roots, the higher roots, where I actually want the root base to start. Now, the great thing with bald cypress is that the trunk kind of flares out at the base anyway. They're known for the buttress kind of roots. I believe 95% of my following is American, so I'm pretty sure you would have seen swamp cypresses, especially the older ones. But for any other viewers, they can grow in many different places, but the biggest, I suppose the biggest or the most amazing kind of ones grow in swamps, hence the name swamp cypress. Which means that their roots are basically in water constantly. The water can kind of rise and fall, but majority of the time they are in water. And this can produce something they call knees, which again, they're still trying to figure out exactly why the knees are created, but there are a few theories, and some theories are that it helps oxygenate the roots. Because they're living in water constantly. And there was actually Ryan Neal done a podcast on asymmetry based around this, and one of the guys that was speaking on it said that he's managed to actually get knees on his bonsai bald cypress by leaving it in water nearly a year round. But anyway, complete tangent there. So with that in mind, I don't really mind a bit of an ugly root base. I say ugly, it's going to be, quite unique, I suppose. I'm not trying to make every single one of my bonsais with the perfect nabari and the perfect kind of root base, and I don't think that's how a lot of trees look. I actually went on a bit of a research trip, I suppose, the other day, where I went to one of the local parks around here, and I don't mean like a little kiddie park, I mean like a big nature park. Highlands Park is actually called. And there will be a video coming up on that soon. But I was just studying the natural forms of trees, really, like how they actually grow naturally and the kind of shapes. I want to try and get more into realism with bonsai rather than the typical Japanese model of, creating pads here and there. So I'm learning to embrace my trees, flaws and all, and working with the flaws that they do have and going from there. So there are some parts of this video as well where I take the tree out of the camera view. I'm still getting used to filming back outside because I've been filming indoors for the past 4 or 5 months, and outdoors is a different camera angle, and I kind of forget where I am. I put my AirPods in, I'm listening to music while I do this stuff, and forget that I'm even filming sometimes. So luckily for me, there are still some really fine roots around this area as well, so they're more than likely the feeder roots for this tree anyway. The bigger roots don't really do much at this point apart from have feeder roots off them. So once I was kind of happy with how much I reduced the roots by, and don't get me wrong, this root ball needs a lot more work, but I didn't want to take much more off. I didn't want to risk it that much. Well, basically it's repotting time, right? So I'm just going to go back into the same container. A bit better soil this time. It's got me a bit more particulate in it, as you can hear. I'm always in two minds when I repot trees like this. So this has quite a lot of branches. It's quite lanky. And I'm probably going to be cutting it back to this first branch you can see in the video here. Some people say, reduce the... it hasn't got foliage on it yet, but reduce the branches so the foliage mass isn't that big, so then the roots aren't struggling to provide for that. Some people say, leave as many branches and foliage as you can, because the foliage is what's going to drive the growth of the roots. So that can be a bit of a tough one to navigate. I think it depends on the species a lot. But with this one, I'm just going to go with it. Let it grow out. If I feel like at the end of spring it's struggling a little bit, I'm going to start cutting branches back and just make sure that it isn't completely stressed out, because it's one thing to have 50% of your roots taken away. It's another thing to have 50% of your foliage mass taken away as well, but there should be balance, and that should work out nicely. So I've kept some of the higher roots, and the reason is for that, I'm hoping over time they kind of bulge and fuse together, and it'll create like that muscly kind of look on the root base there. Obviously this has many, many years in progress. And I'm actually a really big fan of the bottom of this base. I kind of like that it changes the angles like that. Otherwise it was just going to be a straight tree, essentially. It was just going to be a formal upright. But now I can bring a little bit of informality to it. And some final shots. If you're new to the channel and enjoy what you see, please don't forget to give a like and subscribe.